Hi, everyone. We're going to give it a few minutes, let some more people join, and then we'll get to our conversation. All right, let's get started. Hello, everyone, and welcome to this Automotive News Congress conversation about our annual ranking of the top 150 dealership groups. I'm Hannah Lutz, Assistant Managing Editor of Content, coming to you from our studio in Detroit. Thanks to Dealer Solutions Mergers and Acquisitions, DSMA, for sponsoring today's discussion. My colleague, retail reporter John Huetter, is joining me virtually today. Hi, John.
Hey.
We're about to discuss an Automotive News special, our annual list of the top 150 dealership groups based in the U.S. The groups are ranked by new vehicle sales. In a few minutes, we'll dig into what it takes to grow in today's evolving retail environment. But first, let's welcome our panelists. Ric Moreno, Vice President of Dealership Operations for ZT Automotive, which ranks 110 on the list. ZT Automotive has 16 dealerships across Texas, Alabama, Georgia, and Florida. Hi, Ric. Ric, you're muted, just in case you're trying to say hello. And we have Bryan Kilby, owner of Jones Junction, number 123 on the list, which has 8 dealerships in Maryland. Hi, Bryan.
Good afternoon. Thanks for having me.
And Bryan McCafferty, owner of One Automotive, number 93 on the list, with 1 dealership in California and 1 store in Arizona.
Good morning, Hannah.
Hey, Bryan. We want the audience to be a big part of the conversation, so say hi in the chat and tell us where you're watching. We want to know your questions, so please put them in the comments, and we'll answer as many as we can during this live stream. So let's get started. I want to ask each of the panelists a specific question about your business, and then we will get into some of the broader industry questions. Bryan Kilby, we're going to start with you on this one. This year was the first time Jones Junction was on the top 150 list. So can you walk me through the top 1 or 2 tactics that really helped put you on the list?
Well, I think it's, as I said in the article and you reported, I was so happy to be able to do it for our staff and the achievement of that. And I think it's a motivation type thing too, to just see how you rank in the country. You think you sell a lot of cars and you think you do a lot of parts and service, but when you can quantify it like this, it really means a lot to see it in print. So that was our main motivation to do it.
That's good. Bryan McCafferty, your group of 2 dealerships produced the highest per capita revenue and the new vehicle volume out of all the 150 companies on the list. What's behind that?
I mean, I think we have to be frank about it. I'm with a great brand. You know, Toyota makes looking smart pretty easy. We're in a great market of Arizona, and in Northern California, Oakland's actually a really good market for us. And we also employ our entire dealership is done as a one price, one person dealership. So we don't negotiate and we don't have a finance department in our dealership. So I think those 3 things combined really create a different experience for us in the marketplace.
Okay, and Ric, going to you, ZT Automotive rose 22 spots on the list with a 21% increase in new vehicle sales. I know you had a handful of acquisitions late last year, but your colleagues said to us in our reporting that the performance of existing stores helped you climb in that ranking. How so?
Well, obviously, it's just like these guys have been talking about here on this call already, right? It's all processes. We also have some great brands. Toyota has been very helpful in our growth, but so is the domestics. Ford and Chevrolet. We've seen a lot of growth in the existing stores. We started off with when I joined the group, we were sitting at 9 stores, and we're currently sitting at 16. And yes, 9,900, almost 10,000 sales. We were able to produce last year. So
okay. So, 2 of you already mentioned Toyota. Can you elaborate? What is Toyota doing that's really helping you drive sales? Bryan, you want to start?
I think Toyota's position on the EV situation was just tremendous leadership and really helpful. You know, as a retailer, they just seemed like the most rational position. People weren't clamoring to come in and buy electric cars. Hybrids always kind of, to me, has been the answer to greater efficiency and lower emissions, and using the limited natural resources that are needed to make these batteries for hybrids rather than battery electric vehicles just seemed the smarter play. And I think Toyota's leadership in that area has been phenomenal. Also, their leadership in the sedan market. When everybody else abandoned the sedan market, they didn't. And Corolla and Camry have just been unbelievably popular with consumers. And I think those two things are, and just their general relationship with the dealer, they really treat us like a full-blown partner. And you know, from my experience with other brands, and from what I hear, it's just a very unique relationship that we have with them.
Rick, anything to add to that?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, spot on, Bryan. I will tell you though, I also believe that one of the reasons that they performed as well as they have a very strong captive. When you look at the and again, dealing with a lot of different OEMs, Toyota is probably one of the strongest captives out there. You know, when you talk about a pure partnership from the manufacturer to the captive, they exemplify that, right? Everyone should follow their model. When they refer to us as dealer partners, they really mean it. And you know, there's no doubt that the direction they took with hybrid has put them in the forefront of that, because there's a lot of folks that obviously, as you know, went in the EV direction, and with the changing market, they just been able to stay in front of it. And Bryan hit it on the head too. It's the sedan world. Everybody else has gotten out of that, and they decided to play heavy. So, but I would give the captive a strong push on that.
I have one sedan question before we move on back to sales. What is driving that sedan success for Toyota? Are your customers like, you know, really into just the styling of a sedan, or is it more of an affordability play for them?
You know, for me, what I'm most interested in on the sedan market is the wide variety of demographic. I mean, we're seeing 30-year-old young men coming in wanting a Camry XSE. The sporty nature of the car, the great styling. And we're also starting to, you know, this business, I've been in it for a long time, probably longer than anybody in the room on this discussion, but I've seen these cycles before. And so many parents have been driving SUVs for the last 20 years. The kids are now starting to want to drive something that their parents don't drive. And it's odd that that's a sedan, you know, for the rest of us, but Toyota makes a great looking sedan, sporty performance, and they're getting 49 miles to the gallon. So when you look at that Camry product, it is so strong in that market. To us, I think that's what surprised me the most about the market. It's not older people driving the car, buying the car. It's younger people, and I'm sure affordability has something to do with it.
Yeah,
Hey,
very
Dan,
shifting.
I'd like to comment about Toyota.
Yeah.
We've been one of the oldest Toyota dealerships in the United States. We got it in the 60s through the same family. And I agree with the sedan thing was a huge play for Toyota. And I will say what Rick said, TFS is a huge partner also, and they want to make deals happen and they want to keep their customers. So it's a great relationship, as we do with many of the brands we have. But since you were on the Toyota deal, I think that they did handle the hybrid situation very good. And they knew about hybrid too before anybody else knew about hybrid. Nobody mentioned that. And I got to say, they started with the Prius early on as its own, before anybody even knew what a hybrid car was. So,
Yeah.
Very
Great
well
point.
planned out strategy.
All right. Lots of praise for Toyota this afternoon. Okay. So getting back to sales, more than half of the groups on this year's top 150 list that increased sales did not increase their store count, even though there's been so much talk of M&A and consolidation over the past few years. So if we look at the numbers, more than half of the groups held their dealership counts, about a third added dealerships, and 17% shrank their footprints. Bryan, Kilby, I'll start with you on this one. If more than half of the growing groups didn't add stores, what is your take? Is the industry overestimating the value of scale? Is something shifting here?
Well, for us, we went through a big change with our Hyundai brand where we had Hyundai and Genesis in the same facility. And as we went to the Brown facility. So we updated into the new GDI 2.0. So I think when you do the separation, it helps. And I think it just gets you re-engaged into the product. And I think the manufacturers have made it so if you want to do volume and you hit your retros and you understand everything that has to be done day in and day out, and you got to decide if you're going to hit those retros from day one, and you'll have growth because that's how they're playing the retro, to pay you the extra bonus on facilities, et cetera. So I do think that the footprints that you have, if you're achieving the objectives that the manufacturers are putting out there, that's how a lot of the growth is happening. For the dealership that has the horsepower to handle the trade, handle the financing, et cetera, I think it's made them, it's kind of made you stand out and increase volume.
I don't know if either of the other two, you guys wanted to add to that at all, or? No, okay. All right. Bryan, go ahead. Okay. All right, we'll go to Bryan McCafferty on this one. When you're competing against public groups or the much larger private groups, where do you feel where's the pressure? Where do you feel that the most? Is it pricing, inventory, talent, something else?
Probably not going to be a popular answer, but I don't feel a lot of pressure from that segment. I mean, those guys are so focused on scale that I don't know how honest I can get about all this stuff in this forum, but my feeling about it is, especially companies like AutoNation, different large public groups, these guys get so big, as I said in your article, John, they have to manage to the lowest common denominator. And when you have 400 stores, your focus does not have to be excellence. It can be a good high level mediocrity. And as long as we're really solidly mediocre, they're returning a good investment to their shareholder. They have a different set of parameters that they're looking at than an independent single owner dealership. One of the things that I was always surprised when we became acquired by AutoNation back in 96 or 97 was a lot of the contracts that they negotiated were more expensive than the contracts that we had as a single operator. Because they were so scale based, it didn't make any sense to me. So I don't view that as our primary competitor out in the broader market. I don't feel that pressure from them.
So who are you competing against most of all?
One of our big deals, and I think the reason we've grown to the level that we have, we compete against ourselves. We're constantly looking at our own metric and saying, how do we improve on our previous performance? And how do we get a better relationship with the customer? What is evolving in the field of customer service and customer expectation that we need to address? So we're constantly evaluating that relationship with the customer to provide more, to give better service, much more high quality experience when they walk in the dealership. Honestly, that's how I've always looked at it. If our strongest competitor is ourselves, let's keep competing against ourselves and just try and do better every year.
All right, for the next one, I'll start with Ric, but feel free to jump in when he's done responding. Rick, we found that small and mid-sized groups were leaders in revenue and new vehicle sales results per capita, not the larger dealership groups. Can you talk about maintaining and maximizing individual store performance as your group grows? I mean, this is a good question for you since you have been on such a spree at the end of last year.
Well, I think it's, and I think Bryan was kind of touching on that as well, is that, our business is really fairly simple. It comes down to people and processes, and it just managing our activities on a daily basis, right? And he's right. And the thing I will tell you that when you look at it from the larger groups to the smaller groups, I think we have a lot more flexibility in the way we make decisions and how we can pivot, right? When situations where these bigger companies they have to, it takes a little time for them to get that ship moving in a different direction where we can actually pivot very quickly. But at the end of the day, here's what I'll tell you. It's for us, it is all about managing our processes on a daily basis. And that is, not only what our employee experience is, but what our customer experience is. We have multiple relationships that we have to, and I think we take our relationship with our manufacturers much more serious because they are extremely important to us, right? In terms of our growth, our ability to grow over the next few years, which is very strong on our radar right now, is we want to continue to acquire more stores. But you have to, that comes down to people and processes. And I think that's one of the things that we truly focus on in our world.
Yeah. So speaking of process, is there a certain metric that any of the three of you watch that others might, kind of overlook? Bryan, Kilby, any thoughts on that one?
Well, we definitely have, I have our team goes through obviously every day. We look at it every day, and we do have a sequence of events that we look at every day to be successful and what we think makes us successful. And, we always follow that process, because if you follow the process, follow the bouncing ball, so to speak, it'll answer your question for you of what's being done right. So yes, we do have a process, and we're vigilant every day about it. It's emailed, it's talked about, and we work it every day.
All right, Bryan McCafferty.
It starts in that morning meeting, right? It starts in that morning meeting, and throughout the day, it's keeping the numbers and the opportunities in front of your team, measuring, making sure that you're measuring every day.
That's right.
All right. John, I think there's an audience question that you're going to ask next, right?
Right. Throw this out to the group here. We'll start with you, Rick. With the rapid rise of Chinese manufacturers in small and electric vehicles due to lower cost and faster development cycles, how do traditional dealership groups plan to compete while maintaining reliability and service quality? It's a long one there, but basically, how do you compete there with the Chinese vehicles?
Well, I don't know that I personally, I don't feel like we're going to be competing against the Chinese vehicles. Obviously, it's a different, they're bringing a different model to market. We saw that with, we saw that in the electric world, right? It's not something that I feel is that we need to focus on in our markets, at least.
Nice. All right. Bryan, any thoughts there? Bryan McCafferty?
I mean, it'll be interesting to see if the Chinese are able to get into this market. There's a lot of barriers to that occurring in the first place. I think when you look at what's gone on in Mexico, where the Chinese have been in the market for, I think it's less than 6 years, and now have 19% of the market, you have to be of the risk that come with them being in the market. When people are interviewed and they talk about, would you buy a Chinese car? They say absolutely not. And then they say, well, would you consider a car that has all the airbags, 300 miles of range, electric vehicle, and is $28,000? the answer changes. So I think there's some concern about that. I just see a lot of operational problems in A, them getting the cars into the country, and then B, when setting up a dealer network in that situation is I think going to be challenging too. So I don't know. It'll be interesting to see.
Brian,
John,
Kilby,
I'd
any
like to
thoughts
comment
there?
on- Yeah, I do think it's something that you're gonna have to talk about in the future. And I do see them trying to come into the country, of course, but I think they might come in under another manufacturer that's already doing business here that, you know, as you read, I mean, that would be a very, very likelihood scenario, in my opinion, that they come in with a manufacturer that already has a footprint. That's my opinion. But I think you have to look at what they're taking to market because it's a real car. You know, with the pricing and the range, it's a big deal. And I think currently with the current administration, obviously the views of it, but who knows moving forward what you're going to have. But I do think that they're not going away and they know how to build a car and they make it work with the with all the pricing too. So that's what I would say.
Yeah.
I think that's everybody's concern, honestly.
Yeah. Well, good. And then just kind of one of the things, this is not an audience question. This one's from one of us, but what's one thing that each of you is doing in 2020 that you're doing less of in 2026 compared to last year? And what's one thing that you're doubling down on? Start with you, Rick. Actually, yeah.
I will tell you one thing we're definitely doubling down on is training, right? I think that one of the things that we kind of moved away from in our industry overall, I think we've moved away from training to some degree. And really in 25, we really started focusing on that, and it's kind of something we'll double down in 26. You know, I think the training aspect is what will help kind of reduce our turnover, which we know has always been an issue in our industry. But I think part of it is just lack of preparation for our folks that are coming into the industry.
Anything you're trying to do less of this year?
I'll post that one up to one of the Bryans. Give me a second to think about that because
right.
I never look at it from a perspective of trying to reduce, right? Because all we're trying to do is increase volume and everything that we try to do. But if it's reduction, if we're looking at reduction, kind of the same thing, right? It's about reducing our turnover. I would say would probably be one of the main concerns that we have as we head into 26.
Okay. Well, to the Bryans, Brian Kilby, I'll throw it to you on this first. Anything you're trying to do more of this year, and what thing you're trying to do less of?
Down. We're going to double down, I think, if that's the term we're using, on customer experience in the whole process. Bring in AI, as you guys interviewed me on that early on about AI, and I'm not saying AI is the answer because you still need the human portion of that. But I think you just have to make the experience better, and you know. The expectation of the consumer today and your employees today, we all have to double down on both of those to be successful.
Brian McCafferty, other Brian.
Yeah, the probably the thing we're doubling down on. We started a program late last year that we called Radical Hospitality, and to Brian Kilby's point, you know, customer experience, but really approaching it through a hospitality lens. And, you know, when you look at auto dealerships and the typical environment that is in the environment and the typical experience for the customer, we want to try and create an experience that the consumer can't get anywhere else. So that when they come into our store, it feels so different and so unique that there's a value created there for the customer. And when you can create that level of value that a customer can't get anywhere else, I think that's when the consumer wins. We win, the manufacturer win. It's just a really elegant solution. If we're going to do anything less of anything, Rick, we're going to do less hiring. So I think now is a time to keep your eye on employee headcount and tell this market. We all went through this COVID era where cars were hard to get. With the expansion of availability, that's where I think some of the rise in this volume has come from on the individual points. With the natural market coming back to its regular size, we've all kind of gotten, I think, a little comfortable with the way things have been going, and I think we're gonna have to go back to our roots of being cost effective with the resources that we have to be successful in the next couple of years.
Sure, that makes sense. I want to remind the audience that we still are taking questions. I have one in the queue, and we'll take many more. But before we get to that one in the queue, Bryan, Kilby, you mentioned AI, and I was curious about that. Where is AI actually moving the needle in your dealership today? Is it sales, service, marketing, and where would you say it's still not effective or kind of overhyped?
Well, I would say we're using it in a lot of areas. Sales, some live chat stuff and some parts and service things. And I think more follow-up is where we're doing it, and we feel that that's a good way to use it. Follow-up and service and sales. We're using it tremendously there just because it's very effective. And then, we can watch it and monitor it. I think you have to use the AI piece of it because of what it offers for a customer and how timely it is. And it's been a really good option for us.
Anyone else using AI?
Well, I think everybody on this call probably using AI in one form or another, right? It's definitely the movement that you're seeing in our industry. If you went to NADA, I think everybody had AI in their title in terms of what they were offering. I think part of it is that it allows us to touch our customers whenever they're looking to be engaged, right? That's where I believe that AI will become very beneficial for us is the ability to communicate with customers when they want to, how they want to, and do it much more efficiently, I believe, than we can with the human contact. This area will start expanding a lot more over the next few years, and you will see artificial intelligence taking over quite a few, and it is sales and service as we move through its service also being impacted by AI.
I wonder, are customers coming in asking you about AI in the vehicle? Are they looking for it in the vehicle, or do they have questions about it?
Well,
Not yet.
I think it's technology that they're interested in.
Oh, I'm sorry. Bryan, Kilby, you go first, then we'll move.
Well, but I think a lot of the brands have the Google or they have Apple CarPlay and they have the Android systems, and a lot of them are very interactive. Each brand's a little bit different, but as you see this growing, it's now the car screens itself, as we've all been in these newer cars. I think Tesla showed us how to do it, and I think all the manufacturers got a little better at it. We've moved along here. And then Ram came with it with the big 12-inch screen that everybody loved, and now it's everything we do, and it's everything we do now. It's huge. It's a huge, and listen, all the different ways that the brands are talking through the apps to our customers. That's really engaging to a customer, and they really appreciate that. And I think it's just, to Ric's point, this stuff's coming at us, and you can target the best time to talk to the customers with AI. And most customers, a lot of customers do know it is AI, right? And it just puts them in a good spot. And I think it's a huge part of our business now. But you still need the human piece of it too, overseeing it and understanding what's coming at you.
Yeah, I think you're also seeing the manufacturer really coming. They're bringing it from a different direction, right? They're looking at how they can get that customer connected to them, and everything that they're doing, they're trying to move us away from some of these other apps that are out there, and they're creating their own apps. That way, they can have many more touch points with that customer throughout their ownership experience.
And
Yeah.
the customers like it, Rick, too. The customers like it, once you get them over that, so to speak, of the data piece of it, but the customers, they like it. The oil change intervals, anything, the recalls, update over the air. I mean, the consumer likes it.
Yeah, especially the younger buyer, right? They're much more connected to that.
Yeah, it becomes sort of an expectation because they see it everywhere. Makes sense. Okay, we have another audience question. Thanks for sending such good ones in. Bryan McCafferty, we'll start with you on this one, then we can go around if anyone else has anything to add. Do you feel, we talked about this a little bit earlier, do you feel that the auto industry, from the automakers to F&I departments, is doing enough to address affordability, and what more could be done there?
I think affordability is probably our number one problem that we're running into right now. And I personally think it's probably more of honestly, a government issue than a manufacturer issue. When you look at the amount of legislative force is going into what has to be in these cars and what the minimum requirements are for safety, airbags, cameras, safety equipment, all that kind of thing. I think I was reading a thing the other day in a Toyota memo about, I believe the number is the average U.S. car is almost 600 or 700 pounds heavier than some other markets' vehicles because of the amount of safety stuff that's put in it. And we all love safety, and it's important and absolutely critical. Our kids are out on those streets too. But I think without some legislative relief, this affordability issue is going to continue to be a problem. But I think the manufacturers are starting to understand to go down market. Everybody was just talking about all the technology in the cars, and my one comment was going to be, there is a segment of the market that's saying, hey, give me a break from all this stuff, and it's funny, they still want Bluetooth and they still want, their car to have the things in it, but they almost want it running in the background, being fairly invisible to them, and not to be such a giant cost imposition on them. So I think that's going to be a challenge for our industry in the next few years, meeting the expectation of the customer and being able to affordably deliver it.
All right.
And I'd like to say, due to interest rate, we had some very false interest rates over previous to this, meaning the prime rate was so low, and a lot of the 2.9, 3.9 was going on a lot for good credit scores, and even less. That was not real world for 8 or 9 years we lived in. And now you see that ticking up. So then you got these customers that are coming back into the market with those cars, and they're being leveraged, and they're leveraged with the technology, MSRP, tariff, and a higher interest rate. So that's a big deal too. That's a big part of it. It's a big part of
Yeah.
Yeah, I would add that. I mean, both Brian's hit it. It is regulation, and obviously these tariffs and interest rates. When you couple all that together, affordability has become an issue.
Well, and then one thing, most local states, counties, states, and local official fees have gone way up too. With it, sales tax, tag fees, et cetera, registration fees. So all that's playing right into the price.
Yeah.
Every few years we see an announcement of a car that's coming out and is solving this problem. I think it was Slate, it was going to be 20,000, maybe 25. It might be under 30. Good news, going to be under 35,000, and it's like, it keeps, by the time the reality comes to market and they go, well, it needs the 14 airbags and the crumple zone and it needs all this stuff. The concept's great. Give us a $25,000 car. Sure, we'd all love to have that. And when you look at the Chinese solution to it, is have the government subsidize the car by half. I don't know if that's a durable solution, so it's going to be interesting to see how this unfolds in the next few years.
We have another audience question here, and actually this is interesting. This is kind of touches on what we talked about earlier with the EVs. Now, the flip side is the audience is wondering, has the conflict in the Middle East and high fuel prices caused customers to consider EVs more? And has consumer sentiment and buying power shifted as gas prices have increased and also amid the uncertainty with the war with Iran? Rick, we'll start with you on this one.
Yeah, absolutely. There's no doubt that, and we've seen this, right? We've seen gas prices go up, and people come in and trade their Tahoes and their Expeditions for these smaller vehicles, and that'll last for about 6 months to a year, and then they're coming back, and as gas prices drop, they're going back into the Expeditions and the Tahoes, right? The EV, I'll tell you, the EV game. With the government not subsidizing that program anymore, I think that'll slow that down to some degree. I think the hybrid game is where it'll go. That's just my belief on that.
Okay.
John, I will say the used car market, we've definitely seen a pickup in the used EV market. If you can get the right car for the right price through a certified program through one of our brands, we've seen that really get good. Because it's about affordability, and they will take an electric car that's nicer than a gas car just strictly because of payment and affordability. And we've seen an uptick in that. We've seen a big uptick in that.
Yeah.
Yes. And even on some luxury, we have a Genesis store that we've sold quite a few electric Genesis in currently. Yes. And so to answer the question is, yes, we have seen an uptick in it, and then the manufacturers reprice their electric cars, as we all know, much cheaper than they were 3 to 4 years ago. And we lost the subsidy of the 7,500, and a lot of states had subsidies, and a lot of people had a high residual value and a low money factor, and some cap cost reduction stuff going on in there. So now we're just dealing with a cheaper MSRP, and I think that the manufacturers figured that they cannot, without all those subsidies, they have to cut the price of the car, which, the used car is a really good alternative for the consumer in an electric car.
Bryan McCafferty, anything you're seeing on that front? I know you have Toyota stores, and like you said, they were more hybrid focused, but more interest in EV or.
And the thing about Toyota, and I share this same thing, we are not anti-EV.
Sure.
I think there is an absolute role for EVs in the marketplace. But I just don't see it at the 65, 70% that the government wanted it, in the previous administration. We are starting to see a natural curiosity emerge from households that have 2, sometimes 3 cars of how does this electric lifestyle fit into our lifestyle? And it does fit in for a homeowner, someone that's in that situation, a second or third vehicle. It fits in very, very well. We have definitely seen people be more fuel economy conscious in the last month since this situation in the Middle East. But again, with Toyota, we have a Camry that gets 49 miles to the gallon. We have Corollas that get tremendous mileage. So we're really fortunate in that area to have a variety of product to help the customer with in that area.
All right. Thank you. So I have one more question, and we'll do it like a rapid fire if you guys have a couple more minutes. So I'm going to go around. We'll start with Bryan Kilby here. The question is, and I'm interested in your perspective because your group is, I think, 100 years old. Is that right? So how do you make sure you don't get caught in doing things the way they've always been done, that you remain progressive to get yourself on lists like this and to keep growing? So I would like each of you to try to answer very briefly. Just tell me in a couple words one way that you do that. So Bryan, go ahead.
Well, I would just think it's progress. And if you don't keep up with the Joneses, you're going to go backwards. I'll say that. How about that?
All right. Bryan McCafferty.
It's progress.
Okay.
We are constantly reevaluating, in our world, I always kind of look at everything starts with vision, and it's vision, process, and then execution for us. And we have every 6 months, we have a vision meeting with our executives where we get far outside the store, look at what we're seeing, what we want to be when we grow up is a common thing we always call it, and where do we want to expand? What part of the experience do we want better for our employee, for the factory, for the customer? And that's pretty much what rules our company, is that kind of ethos.
All right. And Rick?
Yeah, I think, both gentlemen hit it right on. I do believe, though, it's especially with a leadership team, as you continue to grow the enterprise, is that there has to be clear communication, right? There has to be transparency between leadership and the stores, and within leadership in the stores with the employees. I think that's probably, for us, I would tell you that our main focus is, as we continue to go, is having that transparency between our leadership, our employees, and our customers. And if we want to continue growing our business, I think that's extremely critical for us.
Okay, so transparency, vision, and in progress. Those are three good inspiration tips to end on. So that'll do it for today. Thank you so much for joining. Keep following autonews.com for more retail coverage and more on our list of the top 150 dealership groups in the U.S. You can dive even deeper into our data with an Automotive News All Access subscription. You can see the complete list, re-rank the groups by metric, and benchmark your company more comprehensively with the All Access package. And please consider applying for Best Dealerships to Work For. The application deadline is coming fast on April 24th. If you want to see some of us in person soon and be inspired by some of the most accomplished women in automotive, register for our Leading Women Conference in Dearborn, Michigan, May 7th. With that, thanks to our Congress Conversations production team, Rudy Shork, Jake Neer, Ben Nickel, and Tom Carl. And another thank you to our panelists, Ric Moreno, Bryan Kilby, and Bryan McCafferty. For John Huetter and the rest of the Automotive News team, I'm Hannah Lutz, and we'll see you next time.
Thank you.